Hello everyone, and hello Ma'am Darlene Katakutan. So this is the presentation of Group 5, and we are tasked to discuss and explain the history of United Nations. So I am the first reporter. My name is Carl P. Viente from Section A. So the history of United Nations. So on January 1, 1942, the name United Nations is coined by the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt. So prior to the creation of the United Nations in World War II, there was the first organization or international governmental organization being established. This is the League of Nations by the president also of the United States, who was Woodrow Wilson. But the League of Nations did not last because of the absence of major powers, namely the Germany and the Italy and Japan, because they totally left, and also the lack of participation of the United States, because the United States did not join the League of Nations because of the opposition in the isolationists in the Congress. So the United Nations was first used in the declaration by the United Nations of January 1, 1942 during the Second World War. So in this time, the world is undergoing a war. So between two group of nations, the Axis power and the Allied nations. So this is the war between nations, namely these are the three major Axis power, the big three, the Germany, Italy, and Japan. Because in the Germany, because there was a political takeover of Adolf Hitler, and kailan naman ta, diba, kung kinsa si Adolf Hitler, usa ka brutal and usa ka mabagsik po siya na leader. And then sa Italy, because of the Italy's aggression against Utopia. And in Japan, there was a rise of militarism in Japan against China. So that's the reason behind why World War II occurred, or why World War II happened. So why do United Nations came up into the mind of Franklin D. Roosevelt? So because the United Nations is committed to maintain international peace and security, also to developing friendly relations among nations, and promoting social progress, better life living, and human rights. So maning nahimugso ang United Nations. So in the United Nations, 26 nations pledged that their government to continue fighting together against the Axis power. So as what I have said a while ago, so the United Nations was established because the nations want to fight and continue fighting against the Axis power, or the big three, the Germany, Italy, and Japan. So this country is also mo'y nagsinugdan tungod nga nahimo sa or na ni-exist or ni-occur ang World War II. So on October 24, 1945, the United Nations officially came into existence. So in this date, the United Nations officially exists. So in 1945, representatives of 50 countries met in San Francisco at the United Nations Conference on International Organization to draw up the United Nations Charter. So in 1945, the delegates held a conference to draw up the United Nations Charter. So the United Nations Charter, this is the foundation of the United Nations, the governmental organization. Silbi ang United Nations Charter, this is the foundation, ang pundasyon sa United Nations. And those delegates deliberated on the basis of proposals worked out by the representatives of China, the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States at Dumbarton Oaks, United States in October and August to October. So here the delegates proposed a proposals which enables or upholds, and it has a goal of proposing to maintain worldwide peace. And to continue, the charter was signed on June 26, 1945 by representatives of the 50 countries, because in here the Poland was not represented in this conference, but later on ang Poland ni sign po siya muna siya na himo na siya nga 51 member states. And the United Nations officially came into existence on October 24, 1945. So muna siya ang October 24, 1945 ni exist na ang United Nations, and this was being celebrated yearly ang United Nations. So I have here some pictures of the overview of the preparatory years of the history of the United Nations Charter. So in the first picture, the Declaration of St. James Palace, June 12, 1941. So here in the Declaration of St. James Palace, it was stated that Allies declared their commitment to continue the war and establish principles that could be the basis for the future peace. So delegates declared their commitment or full support to continue the war and to establish principles that could lead or that could maintain worldwide peace. And the second is the Moscow and Tehran Conference in 1943. So here, these are the conference of the big three leaders, namely Winston Churchill, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Jason Stalin. So here, it was being discussed that the Germany should be completely disarmed and made pay for the reparation of the inflicted damage on the Soviet Union and allied countries. So here, it was being discussed that ang Germany kinahanglan niyang bayaran ang mga damage nga ilahang na resulta tungod sa war nga ilahang gibuhat or ilahang war nga na-produce nila. So they have to pay their inflicted damage. So then next picture is the Atlantic Charter on August 14, 1941. So in the Atlantic Charter, this is the joint release of the two big leaders, who is the United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. So the Atlantic Charter will be further discussed by my groupmate. And for the last part of my report, the last picture that I am going to discuss or to give you an overview is the Dumbarton Oaks and Yalta 1944 to 1945. So the Dumbarton Oaks and Yalta, this is the proposal for the World Organization, or it was to discuss the possibilities of creating an international organization that could maintain world peace after the end of World War II. So here it is a proposal on creating a international organization. So silbi murag ang ilang gitakol ani is the United Nations that could maintain the world peace after the end of the World War II. And daw hantod karon naalang jud gihapon ang United Nations. So that could be all for the part of my report, ma'am, and further discussion will be discussed by my groupmates. Thank you.